Speaker, Green Party and I sees the Haass proposals as a small but forward step rather than the game changer that we hoped for. But it becomes particularly disappointing when even those small steps, it appears from the debate today, we cannot get agreement to implement them. The agreement that has been proposed is far from perfect, but the question I would pose is if implemented, would we be in a better place than we were before the process started? And by the Green Party NI's assessment, we believe we would be. But what we were promised, what the objective of the Haass Talks was to deliver agreement on the three issues of the past, parades and flags, by the end of the year, and there was a failure in that regard. It wasn't achieved, and I think that has fed into public cynicism. There's already questions asked about whether or not the five executive parties working together can deliver on issues such as the economy, social issues and environmental issues. But here, I suppose, such a focus was put on the Haass process at the outset, and I think the failure to produce an agreement has really fed public cynicism. They expected failure, and the executive parties delivered it. Yep.
I realise the member's time is short, so taking that into consideration, has the member any intention of actually outlining any alternatives in relation to any of the issues up for discussion?
You didn't mention your amendment.
I thank the member for his intervention. As I've said, the document itself, I don't believe is a failure. I think it's disappointing that there weren't resolutions on all issues, but I believe there's much good in the document itself. And as I say, we believe it would take Northern Ireland to a better place if implemented. But as I say, it was the failure to reach agreement again, the continuing the divisiveness in some of the comments that have come post-Haass have really fed into public cynicism. However, I agree with Peter Robinson in that where there is agreement, the parties should outline the bits that they're happy with, and where there's consensus, they should absolutely get on with implementing those elements of it. Because, as said in the document itself, further delay will risk an increase in levels of public disengagement. We have to give, from this House, a narrative to the public that we can work together to achieve progress. And for the longer we delay, the more disengagement there is, and the more likely there is to be unrest on our streets. But from the outset, the Green Party has challenged the process because it does have a fundamental failure, and I've heard a number of people pay tribute to those who put in the hundreds of submissions. I think it was in the region of 500 submissions to Haass. But to some extent, like Mr. Allister said, he doesn't believe he'd be representing victims if he accepted this. I don't believe I'd be representing civic society if I said being allowed to put in a submission is sufficient. What we need is genuine civic conversation, bringing the public into the process. The Good Friday Agreement was called the People's Agreement. Everyone endorsed it. Well, 72%. Everybody had the opportunity to endorse it. But what we've had is closed-doors meetings that people have been allowed to feed a submission into. But you're kept out from the discussions. Indeed, the discussions were private. And now we have, well, you said, and nobody actually knows because we didn't see the process. But we need to actually bring the public into the peace process. It has to be a public process, because if we want any sustainable solution to our problems, the problems outlined, we need something that communities can endorse, not politicians. We could all agree, 108 of us agree to these proposals, and it wouldn't necessarily stop the trouble on our streets, because we need communities to agree with them. And to do that, we need to bring communities with us, and to do that, we need to include communities in the process. We need a process that serves the common good, and again, It's a failure of our whole peace process, it's a failure of our politics, that we still have people talking about, well, our community doesn't accept this. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly, here to represent the people of Northern Ireland. No politician should be talking about our community separate from their community when we're talking about elder people in this House. And if you go back to look at the Hansard of Gregory Campbell's speech, it's clearly a man who's still entrenched, and it's indicative of some of the attitudes that were brought into this process, entrenched in this idea, I serve this section of society. Well, I'm here to represent all sections of society in Northern Ireland, and I think that's what we should all be here to do. We should improve Northern Ireland for the common good, improve Northern Ireland for everyone. Don't go into these process with a self-serving agenda, but actually go in there to serve the common good, take Northern Ireland forward, and make real, genuine progress.
David McNorrie.
Thank you, Speaker. When a deal results in a trade policy which enforces the curtailment of civil liberty, it is inequitable. And when we find there's a flag policy contemplated which endorses the removal of the national flag on any day, it's iniquitous. And when attitudes, as we've heard, on innocent victims abuse their dignity, and the deal is indefensible. And yet, this evening, we appear to have a scramble in hot pursuit of momentum, which I believe puts at risk the advancements made since